Welcome to Gene's Reviews, where I basically do whatever the hell I want. Do you guys like stuff about like lost civilizations and stuff like that? That really interests me. So I thought today we check one out from a channel called Universe Inside You. And this is underground civilization that survived the Cataclysm 12,000 years ago. Let's check it out.
The Cappadocia region in central Turkey has long been considered one of the most stunning and picturesque regions on Earth. From all over the world, tourists and photographers come to revel in its pink and yellow-hued hillsides, next to deep red canyons, and its legendary fairy chimneys, those natural stone towers shaped and sculpted out of the area's soft volcanic rock by millennia of erosion. And yet, as stunning as the landscape is, there is much more to the region than first meets the eye. Hidden beneath the ground are unexplained mysteries which challenge the foundations of our modern world, secrets that continue to baffle science to this very day. In 1963, the Derinkuyu district of Cappadocia, Turkey, a local man doing renovations on his home began to notice something most curious taking place. The chickens which he kept on his property had started to disappear inexplicably, seemingly vanishing into thin air. The man believed that the chickens must somehow be squeezing through a crevasse in one of his walls, which had formed during the renovation. But if they were, why could he not hear them behind the wall, he wondered, and why did they not re-emerge from the crevasse when they were hungry? Hoping to find an answer, the man took a sledgehammer to the wall. Behind the wall, the man was shocked to find a hidden room which he was not previously aware of.
That's crazy. Could you imagine if you did that like
at the far end of this room was a dark passageway that appeared to descend into the earth. Nervously following this passageway, the man quickly discovered that it led to a strange underground labyrinth of passages and caves. Fearful of venturing too far into this labyrinth and becoming lost, the man returned to the surface and immediately contacted local authorities, who rushed to the site with a team of scientists and began conducting an official investigation into the man's unusual discovery. When they did, what they found stunned even the most experienced among them. The labyrinth was actually only the beginning of an enormous underground complex descending more than 275 feet into the earth across 18 distinct levels of tunnels. Incredibly, it appeared that the complex was part of an entire lost civilization tucked safely underground, and each of its 18 levels was carefully engineered for specific uses. There were dwellings, meeting places, and schools, even a temple. There were livestock stables and cellars for making and storing wine. There was a well running 180 feet into the earth to provide the complex with water, and thousands of small ventilation shafts to ensure natural airflow reached all 18 levels. Moreover, the complex appeared to have an elaborate system of defenses, including intentionally short and narrow hallways, which would force unwanted intruders to stoop over and walk in single file, as well as huge half-ton circular boulders between each level, which were only movable from the inside and could be placed to seal off each level from the others. As it turned out, the man had accidentally discovered what would become known as the Derinkuyu underground city, which scientists estimated could have at one time housed upwards of 20,000 people, along with their livestock and food stores. It was clear to researchers that the Cappadocia region was uniquely situated for the construction of just such a city, with the area's distinctive, easy-to-carve volcanic rock,
probably
meaning
to
that
avoid
whoever
like
had made
persecution and stuff
Derinkuyu
like that,
could have done
imagine.
so using little more than shovels and pickaxes. But that was just the thing. While researchers were well aware of how Derinkuyu was built, they actually had no idea who built it. The Cappadocia region is located as a sort of middle point between continents, a bridge between Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. As such, the area has seen a succession of empires throughout its history, from the Assyrians and Persians to the Greeks and Romans to the Ottoman Empire. It is an area that has been in constant conflict, changing hands from one great power
Yeah.
to another
So
as
they built
centuries
that to go
passed.
hide.
For this reason, scientists believe that Derinkuyu was created as a sort of temporary shelter from foreign invaders, a hideaway for conquered populations and persecuted groups during times of conflict. Within the city, scientists found archaeological evidence that it had been used by early Christians hiding from Roman persecution and locals to escape the Arab-Byzantine Wars of 780 to 1180 AD. They found that it had been used as protection from the Mongol hordes in the 14th century and by the persecuted ethnic groups during the time of the Ottoman Empire. And yet, while this may have explained who Derinkuyu was used by, it did not actually reveal who built it. Some scientists propose that it could have been built as far back as 1200 BCE by the Hittites, who ruled most of the region at that time, a theory that emerged after Hittite artifacts were found within the complex. Others asserted that while the Hittites may have created a level or two of the complex, the bulk of the work was almost certainly done by the Phrygians between the 8th and 7th centuries BCE. The reasoning behind this was that the Phrygians, one of the region's first truly dominant empires, were accomplished builders and architects, recognized for monumentalizing rock formations and creating remarkable rock-cut facades.
That makes sense.
Yet each of these theories were simply that, theories.
But
Speculation
they would know
without
how to do
conclusive
it.
proof one way or the other. This led many to believe in the possibility that both the Hittites and the Phrygians were just another groups of people who simply used a site. They were not the original builders, meaning the city was far, far more ancient than anyone ever thought possible. The real problem which prevented scientists from giving a definitive answer on who built Derinkuyu was that the volcanic rock it was carved out of could not be carbon dated, since it was stone and not organic material. This left the question unanswered, disparate theories unproven and unverified. The only thing scientists knew for sure was that it had been used for thousands of years by those looking to hide, changing hands
Right.
and being used by different groups, who each likely added to the work of the last, all the way until the 1920s, when the site was officially abandoned after ethnic Greek populations were deported following the Greco-Turkish War. It appeared that the mystery of who built Derinkuyu would have to stay a mystery. The site, just another unexplained marvel of the ancient world.
So every group
And
that
perhaps
went in
that's
there
where the story
just
would have
remodeled
ended,
it a little bit.
except in the
added
years that
to it.
followed, the mystery would go much deeper and get even more bewildering. Barely 1 year after the discovery of Derinkuyu, workers in the village of Cappadocia, only a few miles away, uncovered another strange labyrinth of underground tunnels while digging into a hill known as the Citadel of Cappadocia. As excavations were conducted, their suspicions were confirmed. It was another underground city complex, much like Derinkuyu. There were dwellings and storage rooms, wineries and stables, and even a burial chamber, all connected by more than 100 tunnels dug into the ground,
Wow.
which could be shut off by huge boulders moved over the entrances from the inside. While the Cappadocia underground city was not as large as Derinkuyu, it had a sprawling layout which actually made
Okay.
it wider. Either way, it was another
So it was
monumental construction
less
hidden
levels.
beneath the ground. As it was explored further, something even more remarkable was discovered. Deep within the Cappadocia complex were a series of tunnels that stretched all the way to Derinkuyu, some 5 miles away. Not only were there 2 underground cities in Cappadocia, but it appeared they were sister cities, physically connected and perhaps built by the
That is
same
really
unknown
cool.
ancient builders. On its own, this raised all sorts of questions, but in fact, the discoveries did not stop there. In 1972, some 35 miles north of Derinkuyu, in the village of Oskanok, a local farmer became perturbed when he noticed that the water he was giving his crops seemed to just disappear into the ground. Surveying his fields in an attempt to find the source of the problem, the farmer came across a hidden underground chamber concealed beneath the earth. With the discoveries of Derinkuyu and Cappadocia only a few years prior still fresh in mind, the farmer contacted local authorities to examine the chamber further. When they did, they found that it once again opened up to reveal a massive underground city complex descending some 130 feet into the ground across 10 carefully constructed levels.
That's a long ways.
Like Derinkuyu and Cappadocia, the underground city at Ascanach contained dwellings and storage areas, stables and wine cellars, a well and a ventilation system, and rolling stone doors. Interestingly, it also contained a rudimentary communication system that allowed each level to talk to the one above or below, as well as holes drilled into the stone above the entrance to each level, which would allow for hot oil to be poured on the intruders. While Ascanach was marginally smaller than the other underground cities previously found, its discovery did raise more interesting questions. At 35 miles away, had it been built by the same builders? And if so, why the additional features? Moreover, could it be connected as the other two were, by underground tunnels? Whatever the answers, what was clear was that the mystery went beyond just a small area surrounding Derinkuyu. In fact, as the years passed and further research was conducted, scientists began to realize that there was an entire underground world beneath Cappadocia. In nearly every village across the region, there was at least one rock-cut structure under the ground, most of them small, only a room or two, but indicating a widespread predisposition to underground building. It appeared to scientists that an entire underground civilization had existed at one time in the Cappadocia region, centering around city centers in Cappadocia and Ascanach, and the de facto capital
That's really
at
a good
Derinkuyu.
idea. It would be so
This
much
theory
cooler
remained until
underground
modern
like that.
times,
During the
when,
summertime,
without
it
warning,
would be amazing.
everything scientists thought they knew was blown out of the water. In 2012,
Other than you'd never
Turkey's
see any
Housing
sun.
Development Administration launched an urban transformation project in the Cappadocian city of Nevsehir, which would demolish old, decrepit buildings near the city's Byzantine-era Nevsehir fortress and replace them with modern new builds. As the project got started, workers began to uncover a series of underground tunnels leading back beneath the fortress. It had been 40 years since the last discovery of an underground city in Cappadocia,
Should I find them more?
so workers assumed that surely this could not be what they were uncovering. But it was. Upon further examination, it appeared that, once again, a massive underground city complex had been found. Like the cities at Derinkuyu, Cappadocia, and Ascanach, this new city contained many of the same characteristics. The rooms, stables, cellars, the water and ventilation systems, and the massive stone doors. Except when geophysicists from Nevsehir University used seismic tomography and geophysical resistivity technology to map the labyrinth beneath the ground, they were blown away. It appeared this new city extended over an unfathomable 5 million square feet, descending more than 370 feet into the ground.
One thing you'd
This
have
meant
to worry
that
about
the underground
those that
city
cave
at
in on you.
Nevsehir
If
actually
there's an
appeared to be
earthquake or
bigger
something.
than Derinkuyu. In fact, up to 30% bigger, scientists believed. In other words, whoever had built Cappadocia's underground cities, their work was far more extensive than initially understood, and Derinkuyu was not their most marvelous creation. And yet, before Nevsehir could even be fully excavated and explored, something even more amazing happened. Something which, again, changed the entire perception of Cappadocia's underground cities. More than 500 miles from Derinkuyu, far removed from the Cappadocia region in southeastern Turkey, lies the historic city of Midyat. In 2020, workers conducting routine restoration work designed to conserve historic streets and houses in the city's old town uncovered a hidden entrance to a cave in one of the houses they were working on. Descending into the cave, the workers found a passage leading to an immense underground complex. Could this be another Derinkuyu, they wondered? Another Nevsehir? They were hundreds
they're all
of
over the
miles
place. They
outside
gotta
the
be.
Cappadocia region, hundreds of miles from any other underground building projects which had previously been discovered. The answer was both yes and no. Certainly, there was an enormous underground city beneath Midyat, which came to be called Midyat, or City of Caves. Yet, as excavation began, researchers quickly realized that this underground city would not only far exceed the size of Derinkuyu, but it was likely to dwarf even the city found at Nevsehir. Indeed, while Nevsehir was estimated to be up to 30% larger than Derinkuyu, researchers believed that Midyat would be more than 300% bigger.
Wow.
This forced researchers to completely reimagine their conception of Turkey's underground cities. If there was an underground civilization sometime in the past, then it was not just Cappadocia, but in fact, it extended as far as Midyat, suggesting a massive underground network spreading across the entire country and perhaps beyond.
And probably
Who
not
could have
just in
created
Turkey.
such an unfathomable network, and why? There are some who say that an answer has recently been revealed. In the same year that Derinkuyu was discovered in Cappadocia, 1963, researchers conducting a survey in southeastern Turkey came across another unusual site, not far from where Midyat would be found almost 60 years later. It was called Gobekli Tepe, or Belly Hill, and at the top of this hill, researchers found broken slabs of limestone strewn in every direction. Curious as this was, researchers believed the site to be little more than a medieval cemetery, so they simply made a note of it and moved on. It was not until 1994 that the site would be revisited by a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt during his own survey of sites in the region. Unlike those before him, he did not simply make note of Gobekli Tepe and move on. Instead, he immediately believed the site to be something special. Far from merely a medieval cemetery, according to Schmidt, it was clear right away this was a gigantic Stone Age site. As research began, Schmidt would be proven correct, and in fact, it would go much further than even he imagined. Buried below the surface of the hill were a series of megaliths up to 18 feet tall and weighing as much as 50 tons, arranged in circular patterns and covered in detailed carvings of humanoid figures, animals, and abstract symbols. Even more important and more astonishing, the site was carbon dated at between 9600 to 8200 BCE, making it at least 5,000 years older than Stonehenge.
Wow.
Simply, Gobekli Tepe was home to the world's oldest known megaliths. But who had been around that far in the past to create something so unbelievable? Who had moved Gobekli Tepe's 50-ton blocks and inscribed them with such detailed carvings? As Schmidt put it, we're 6,000 years before the invention of writing here. The mystery only deepened as the study on the site continued. In 2014, researchers digging deeper into the site uncovered evidence of a year-round settlement. This implied that the builders of Gobekli Tepe had not simply been nomadic hunter-gatherers who had built a monument in the middle of nowhere, as had been assumed, but an established civilization, one older than any on record. Who was this civilization, scientists wondered, and why had they not appeared in our history books previously? To this day, research continues, though so delicate is the site that barely 5% has yet been excavated. As more and more is uncovered in the coming years, what new revelations will emerge about the site and the mysterious civilization that built it? Furthermore, some are asking why they would have built it, and why such effort would have been put into such a massive building project so far in the past.
To avoid persecution,
For many,
I'm sure.
answering the why would have profound implications on our understanding of human development. Some believe that Gobekli Tepe will prove to have been a religious site for one of the world's earliest religions. Schmidt himself called it the first human-built holy place and a cathedral on a hill, while others speculate that it could have been the world's first astronomical observatory aligned with the Sirius star. In either case, the implications would be substantial. But in fact, in 2017, two scientists came forward with a different and even more significant answer. That year, chemical engineers Martin Sweatman and Dimitrios Tsikritsis began examining Gobekli Tepe's famous vulture stone. a pillar intricately carved with depictions of different animals, figures, and designs, which had long puzzled scientists. The two men believed that the vulture stone was, in Sweatman's words, encoding some kind of information. And upon closer examination, they thought they knew what that information was. They proposed that the animals depicted on the pillar were, in fact, zodiacal representations of ancient constellations. A scorpion as Scorpio, a duck-like figure as Libra, a wolf as Lupus, and so on, each arranged around a circular shape in the center representing the sun. In this way, Sweatman and Socrates believed that the vulture stone provided a date stamp for some sort of event in human history, the carvings recording a time in the past when the constellations were arranged as they were on the stone. But what could this event have been? Sweatman and Socrates believed the vulture stone provided an answer for that too. They declared that the series of square symbols near the top of the pillar, with strange lines descending from them, represented the fragments of a comet falling to Earth, while the headless man in the bottom right corner symbolized the disaster and loss of life these fragments brought to the Earth. As they proposed in their seminal article in Mediterranean Archaeology and Archaeometry Journal, the vulture stone was a memorial to this devastating event, probably the worst day in history since the end of the Ice Age. Their most interesting and important piece of evidence that this was true was not simply their interpretation of ancient carvings, but what happened when they tried to determine when this proposed comet event had taken place. If the carvings were recording a specific date according to the alignment of the constellations, then what was this date? Using computer software, Sweatman and Socrates had determined 3 times in the past in which the constellations were aligned as depicted on the vulture stone: 4350 BCE, 10,950 BCE, and 18,000 BCE. Why was this so important?
If anyone knows, let me know. What's the difference between BC
corresponded
and BCE?
Perfectly with something called the Younger Dryas event. Younger Dryas was a 1,300-year event, roughly 12,900 to 11,600 years ago, in which the Earth underwent a period of global cooling, which pushed many parts of the Earth into Ice Age conditions. Geological and archaeological records show that this period was one of terrifying destruction across the globe, a time of super tsunamis and mass flooding, of severe wildfires which fill the atmosphere with enough ash to block out the sun, a period of worldwide animal extinctions. While the existence of the Younger Dryas event is well documented, scientists have always been unsure of what exactly caused it. One of the leading hypotheses which has long existed is that the Younger Dryas event was caused by a comet exploding in Earth's atmosphere, showering the planet with fragments, the largest of which would have crashed into the ice caps covering North America at the time, vaporizing them instantly and throwing the Earth's entire ecosystem out of whack. According to Sweatman and Socrates, the vulture stone at Gobekli Tepe showing the constellations in exactly the position they would have been in when the Younger Dryas event took place was, in fact, a record of the event taking place.
Right, that's how they kept their records, by
of it specifically being caused by a comet. As Sweatman said in an interview, "I think this research, along with the recent finding of a widespread platinum anomaly across the North American continent, virtually seal the case in favor of a Younger Dryas comet impact." Could this be true? Could Younger Dryas have definitely been caused by a comet? And could the vulture stone at Gobekli Tepe be a record of this disaster
I don't see why not.
laid down by an ancient civilization missing from our history books? If so, what does this have to do with the underground cities found near Gobekli Tepe and all across Turkey? The answer may lie in the fact that Gobekli Tepe may not be the only place where a record of the Younger Dryas event exists in the region. Zoroastrianism is one of the world's oldest known organized religions.
Oh, wow, I've never heard of
that. An Iranian religion based on the teachings of the prophet Zoroaster. Zoroastrianism is so old, in fact, that we're not even sure exactly how old it is. It first enters written history in the 6th century BCE, but it is widely accepted that its roots go back to at least the 2nd millennium BCE. Even then, it was almost certainly based on oral traditions, which were much older than that. However old it is, it's known that Zoroastrianism was the first to introduce and codify concepts like heaven and hell, judgment after death, messianism, angels and demons, and the dualistic cosmology of good and evil. In fact, it is well established that Zoroastrianism influenced the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as well as Buddhism and Hinduism, and even Greek philosophy. Indeed, many of the foundational stories in these traditions are simply retellings of older Zoroastrian tales. Just look at the biblical story of Noah's Ark, which is a relatively straightforward retelling of the Zoroastrian story of Yima. In the Vendidad, a foundational text to Zoroastrianism, a man named Yima is given a warning of an impending catastrophe that will wipe out the Earth's human and animal populations. Instead of a flood, as in the story of Noah, Yima's catastrophe is to be a deep freeze, as the text reads, "O Yima, towards the sacred land will rush evil as a severe fatal winter. Evil will rush as thick snowflakes, falling in increased depth." Instead of an ark, Yima is instructed to build a multi-level underground settlement, a self-sustaining city with water and plants, and bring to it 2,000 human couples and every kind of animal.
Wow.
There, Yima is to remain, as Noah did on his ark, waiting out the deep freeze which would wipe out the rest of the earth. The story ends with Yima's people re-emerging from this underground city after many generations, having survived the fatal winter and thus going on to repopulate the earth. Here, a simple question can be asked. Does this not sound like a group surviving the 1,300-year deep freeze of Younger Dryas? Take a step back and begin to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Zoroastrianism is an Iranian religion. Iran, of course, shares a border with Turkey. Because the religion's earliest written texts were almost surely composed from oral traditions, which were much older, it's distinctly possible that they contain the traditions and stories of Turkey as well as Iran. Is it then possible that the underground cities found across Turkey were built as underground shelters to survive the extreme weather events of Younger Dryas, as recorded in the ancient Zoroastrian Vendidad text? And if so, then perhaps it is possible that, having survived the deep freeze, humans returned to the surface and memorialized their survival in the Gobekli Tepe monument, even providing a record of the exact date the event had taken place through a specific astronomical alignment carved on the vulture stone. Think about what this would mean. A proof of the existence of an advanced ancient civilization prior to the Younger Dryas event more than 12,000 years ago, far before any civilization recorded in our history books today. It is not an exaggeration to say this would flip the scientific world on its head and change our understanding of human civilization, of where we came from and how we developed. Perhaps the secrets of this hidden history remain buried underground in Turkey to this very day, waiting to be discovered by some random farmer or renovation project, waiting to change history as we know it. But in one of our previous videos, the one on the enigmatic Gunung Padang pyramid in Indonesia, we showed that Turkey is not the only place where advanced pre-Younger Dryas civilizations existed.
Well, I'm sure it was
so
all over the
make sure to watch
place.
it. Once again, thank you for sticking to the end. If you
Wow, that's really a lot to think about, though. How was your history lesson? Let me know in the comments down below if you like that or not, and you want to see more of stuff like this. Now it's time for a joke. I went to my doctor. He asked me to provide a stool sample, so I've enrolled in a basic woodworking course. He looked concerned when I told him it would take a couple months to produce.